It's the biggest non-scandal of the week, and Sean Hannity is trying his darndest to keep it alive. The scandal involves a 20-year-old video of a young Barack Obama hugging a professor. Hannity, along with two right-wing bloggers, believe it's more than just a hug.
I think the one smoking gun here, the only smoking gun here, there are two smoking guns, actually.
Oh, wait a minute, there might be three smoking guns. Actually, there were 0 smoking guns. But that didn't stop Hannity. Last night, he found a way to top himself.
And we continue on Hannity with former Alaska governor, Fox News contributor, Governor Sarah Palin.
Hannity brought a real source. Palin up to speed on all the right-wing buzzwords.
He hung out 20 years with Wright, Ayers, Dorn, Flager, Acorn, Alinsky, community organizing. Now we have another sort of bit of information.
Well, fortunately, Palin's already a pro at smearing the President of the United States.
People must be aware of his radical past, his radical association. He has chosen the most radical of the radicals.
Palin then cooked up a new line of attack, this time suggesting the nation's first black president wants us to return to the days before the Civil War.
He is bringing us back, Sean, to days that you can harken back to days before the Civil War, when, unfortunately, too many Americans mistakenly believed that not all men were created equal.
So how do you think President Obama would have fared in a pre-Civil War society? How do you think he would have done, Professor Palin? Just curious. The history lesson continues.
Now, it has taken all these years for many Americans to understand that gravity, that mistake that took place before the Civil War, and why the Civil War had to really start changing America. What Barack Obama seems to want to do is go back to before those days when we were in different classes based on income, based on color of skin.
Joining me now is Martin Bashir, host of the Martin Bashir Weekdays on MSNBC. What was that? That's the best game change promo I've seen yet.
Ed, this was an absolute classic from the Hannity-Palin Joint School of Conspiracy and Contempt, a school which, by the way, reading is optional, historical evidence and accuracy is irrelevant and unnecessary. They had two targets in mind last night. The late Professor Derek Bell, who was the first African-American tenured law professor at Harvard, whose own writings, if either of those two had bothered to read them, would tell you that any progress that African-Americans made in this country had to be with a view to the wider society. He was not a violent separationist. He was not a black violent leader in any sense. And yet they dressed him up as this revolutionary. And then they focused on the president. Now, here's the interesting thing. Here are two African Americans who through the sheer verve of their academic and cultural contributions, have risen from humble beginnings to great status. And I wonder why Sarah Palin would attack them.
Radical. He was radical. I mean, they were accusing this man of giving speeches against the civil rights movement and saying that there's racism in America. Hello, there's racism in America, and that's supposed to be radical?
Well, that was the wonderful thing about the argument. It was counterintuitive. She was saying originally that isn't it awful that Rush Limbaugh is being attacked? What about the fact that I was attacked by Bill Maher? And it's the same argument that she's using here. There's been racism, yeah, whatever, but the president and Professor Derek Bell are responsible for racism. It's nonsensical.
Now Derek Bell, who has deceased.
Indeed, in October.
He worked at the Justice Department following the Brown versus Board of Education. He was first tenured black professor at Harvard. I mean, this was an accomplished man. Does he deserve this?
Well,
no one deserves this. No one deserves this.
I spoke to two people today, one of who's an academic and one of whom is a politician. One of them did know Professor Derek Bell and said the one thing that you would know about his pursuit for equality was that it was done with courtesy and respect at all times. And now they've chosen, as it were, to raise him from the dead and dress up all of his achievements as if he's a lunatic and a raging extremist.
I'm curious about how President Obama or any black man would have done in a leadership role before the Civil War.
That would have been an interesting thing to discover.
What is Sarah Palin talking about?
Well, again, as you know, history isn't really her finest and most important skill.
Or sticking to the job.
But, you know, the other thing about this, I think, Ed, is aside from the fact that you and I as individuals would feel insulted if we were the victims of this, and of course I'm quite sure that Professor Derek Bell's family deserves some kind of an apology, I think, though, every time Sarah Palin says this kind of thing, anyone in America whose compos mentis are not currently in a psychiatric institution realizes very, very quickly that the only idiots in this particular situation are not the president.
Martin Bashir, always. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm going to destroy a right-wing smear campaign targeting me. That's next.